Buongiorno a tutte e tutti. Buongiorno a tutte e tutti. Stiamo aspettando che colleghi Wael. Forse è quel microfono. Prova. Meglio? Forse mi
Dietro?
prova. Meglio.
Così.
Ah, tengo questo.
No, penso che deve...
Prova. Scusate.
Ormai
Ah. Prova. Perché un po' meglio.
non si sente? Secondo me
Prova. Perfetto. Ok, abbiamo provato l'equilibrio. Allora, buongiorno a tutte e tutti. Stiamo aspettando con il giornalista Morale del Taglio. Nel frattempo che succede, io inizio a introdurre questo ciclo di insegnamenti e i nostri ospiti. Questo ciclo di incontri ha avuto una liberazione, 5 anni di salute mentale e tempo comunale. In questo ciclo di incontri abbiamo voluto interrogare sulla libertà politica. L'incontro di oggi ha titolo le politiche della cura e della politica tutto cittadino che nel tempo del video e da questo piano. Oggi ci siamo poi diversi ospiti, io vado a presentarvi, mi autopresento e sono alleato con una formazione in psichiatria e psicologia. Alla mia destra c'è la professoressa Rubatale, professoressa di antropologia all'Università di Bologna, che introdurrà questa giornata. La professoressa Rubatale è stata precedentemente full professor per molti anni nella School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, dove ha diretto il Center of Migration and Diaspora Studies. Le sue ricerche si concentrano su genere, migrazione, persone rifugiate, con particolare attenzione alla Palestina e al mondo arabo. La sua produzione scientifica è stata prevalentemente di libri e frutti che si sono incentrati sul femminismo decoloniale, effettività politica e giustizia. Parte del comitato esecutivo di Associazione di Antropologi e Antropologi Palestinesi e parte di reti internazionali di attivismo su temi della decolonizzazione, dei diritti umani e della libertà di movimento. Alla mia sinistra c'è invece il dottor Yasser Abouchon, che è un psichiatra palestinese che ha legato al Community Mental Health Program dal 2014 e si è occupato di sviluppare la strategia nazionale palestinese per la salute mentale, che ha diretto il Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Technical Working Group a Gaza e nel 2020 ha cofondato la Palestine Global Mental Health Network. I suoi interessi includono lo sviluppo delle capacità professionali e l'psichiatria e l'advocacy, oltre alla ricerca e la pubblicazione di circa una ventina di articoli accademici con l'atto dell'autore. Ha avuto diversi riconoscimenti e dal 7 ottobre 2023 per un caso fortuito, in realtà si trova a Verona dove sta conseguendo un dottorato e dove collabora con l'organizzazione Center Collaborating, l'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità, sviluppando interventi scalabili volti a ridurre il disagio tra la popolazione della società. Vi presento infine uno dei nostri ospiti d'onore, il giornalista Wale Zahir, ufficio di Al Jazeera. È considerato un giornalista di lunga esperienza, testimone sopravvissuto alle guerre su Gaza, vincitore di numerosi premi con un'esperienza di circa 30 anni nella copertura su Gaza della Palestina. Molti membri della sua famiglia sono stati presi di mira e uccisi dalle forze di occupazione israeliane durante il genocidio in corso a Gaza. Sua moglie, il nipotino di 8 mesi, la figlia di 7 anni, il figlio di 16 anni e altri 9 tra nipoti e parenti sono stati uccisi in un bombardamento israeliano sul campo profughi di Nusayr il 25 ottobre 2023, che ha anche ferito numerosi altri membri della sua famiglia. Il 15 dicembre 2023 è stato nuovamente colpito mentre stava lavorando con il fotografo Sandra Bodata vicino alla scuola Haifa a Khan Yunis. Al-Dahdoh è rimasto gravemente ferito, mentre Abu Dhaka è stato ucciso. Anche il figlio maggiore, il giornalista Hamza Dahdoh, è stato assassinato in un attacco aereo israeliano a Khan Yunis il 7 gennaio 2024. Wale Dahdoh è diventato noto come la montagna di Luz, l'essere del nostro tempo, facendo riferimento alla società isolata per la sua pazienza, resistenza e fermezza, per la sua capacità di continuare a raccontare ciò che accade nonostante le perdite subite. Numerose istituzioni e testate l'hanno nominato personaggio dell'anno per il biennio 2023. Ha ricevuto l'International Constitution Press Freedom Award, il più alto riconoscimento assegnato dal club nel 2024. Ha inoltre ricevuto premi da Reporters Sans Frontiere, Amnesty International e molte altre organizzazioni internazionali in diversi paesi del mondo. A questo punto lascio la parola alla professoressa Rubasale che introdurrà questa giornata e a seguire appunto parleremo.
Buonasera a tutti, prima di tutto volevo anche estendere un paio di ringraziamenti a coloro che hanno organizzato questa incredibile giornata di studio di cui questo evento fa parte, e anche la professoressa Bonazzi che ha contribuito in modo notevole alla realizzazione di questo evento, e vorrei un breve applauso anche per la dottoressa Alia Gessin che oggi si è specializzata in psichiatria. Una bellissima tesi sul razzismo strutturale nelle strutture sanitarie. I will switch to English now so that our guests can understand what I'm going to say, and I'm going to try to be very brief, but I thought that it was important to welcome our guests and to give a couple of reflections as a way of introduction. First of all, as we all know, we are now in the third year of a genocide, which statistics are even impossible to apprehend or to even name. Some people say 70,000, some others say 180,000 people, but the number might be close to 100,000 disappeared by Israel. And we know that an unknown number is still lying under the rubble. We have witnessed and seen, thanks to the reports of journalists like Wael Al-Tahtouf, and we have been given the scale, the full scale of the devastation on the mental health population of Gaza, thanks to the work of doctors like Yasser Jamia, and we know that the entire infrastructure of Gaza has been destroyed. More than 1,600 extended families, we're talking about entire bloodlines A whole generation has been maimed. More than 240 journalists have been killed. The Brown study has found that the war on Gaza has, since October 7th, 2023, killed more journalists than the US Civil War, World War I, II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yugoslavia Wars, and the war in Afghanistan post 9/11. And the study has named Gaza one of the largest news graveyards. The 12 universities in Gaza have also been totally destroyed by Israeli bombs. And already in June of last year, more than 80% of Gaza schools have been destroyed. These harrowing genocide statistics are only partially able to account for, or let alone convey, the devastation which is incalculable and which will continue to produce injuries, both physical and psychic, and deaths for the years to come. But this attempt at annihilating Palestinian life force is the continuation of a long history of violence, of occupation, of siege, and apartheid. The crucial question that we want to address in these days, but in particular today, is how does a politics of repair happen in the context of a perpetual injustice and colonial violence? We have mentioned trauma earlier, but perhaps we should talk about madness, for how does one stay sane in the face of these ongoing and historical forms of violence, where constant loss and mourning have become so much part of the ordinary life? Is it even possible to remain present and to remain sane? I personally find that one of the ways in which the humanization of Palestinians happens, one of the many ways, in this double bind, whereby on the one hand, Palestinians are considered in the classic and typical colonial mindset, irrational, mad, innately violent. But on the other hand, it is constantly demanded on us that we stay rational, calm, reasonable, and measured. And of course, that we prioritize the feelings of others over our own, to be intellectual as humans. In the face of this structural, material, violence, how do we remain present? How do the Palestinians of Gaza remain here? In the context of this conference titled Cura, Liberazione, as I mentioned, it also occurs to commemorate 100 years from the birth of psychiatric and resistance fighter Frantz Fanon. We cannot not frame our discussion within Fanon's major contribution, that is to see madness not as an individual illness, but as the paradigmatic sickness of colonialism. Fanon's central work was in the brutality of colonial racism and on the impossibility of healing in a context of colonial subjugation. Among other things, he illustrated how through the psychiatric paradigm that dehumanized Muslims as impulsive, primitive criminal beings, confinement became the cure of the colonial past. This is a metaphor and pretty much the condition of Gaza of decades now. Mahmoud Darwish, our late beloved poet, Palestinian poet, very much drew on Fanon when he wrote in the aftermath of the massacres of Sabra and Shatila in the early 80s, an essay cogently titled The Madness of Being Palestinian. One way we try to remain present and sane, I would say, is by telling our story and stories. The struggle to remain human in the face of this long-term violence and shattering of the self has been centered on narrating our own story, both towards the rest of the world and inwards, intergenerationally. It is again Mahmoud Darwish who wrote that being the master of our narrative is the key to our ability to remain present, both materially and metaphorically. He even said we don't return, we arrive to Palestine because we never left, thanks to our owning our story. So we are extremely happy and honored to host tonight Wael al-Dahdouh, who Alia has mentioned has been the voice and the image of Gaza and the living example of the scale of incommensurable loss as he himself had to survive, having lost his own family, wife and children and grandchildren to Israeli attacks, and having decided hours after burying his very own family to continue reporting and telling the story. In many ways, Wael has stated, in many interviews, Wael has stated that he had no other choice than to continue. And we are extremely honored and blessed to have with us tonight also Dr. Yasser Jamia, the director of the Gaza Global Mental Health Program, who has now also been introduced by Alia, who has also been so relentlessly working on surveying the scale of the tremendous scale of trauma mental health issues emerging in Gaza today. Adding, as I said, into a population that had already suffered from decades of siege, successive Israeli bombing and destruction. We are grateful for your incredible work and presence with us while against taking part.
Thank you very much to Dr. for this meaningful attention. Here, I'm in contact with Wael Takur that is connecting. He will speak in Arabic and I will translate. We are waiting for him. He told me that he has not a lot of time, so he will show. But you know, he has some troubles, health troubles, so I think it's a very important gift that he's giving us his time to say. So I hope you understand the not perfect usage.
Not working. Pauza.
الحديث في موضوع قطاع غزة والتأثيرات النفسية هو حديث صعب جدا، ويحتاج حقيقة إلى دراسة تأنية بشكل كبير لاستخلاص العبر على كل الأصل بما فيها الجانب النفسي.
Parlare di Gaza oggi e degli effetti sulla salute mentale è molto difficile e richiede uno studio approfondito che guardi numerosi aspetti, tra i quali è fondamentale quello della salute mentale.
هذا التميز في قطاع غزة ربما لأسباب عديدة. قطاع غزة قطاع جيد جغرافي صغير جدا ومحاصر بالكامل من الجهات الأربع، وبالتالي الحرب في قطاع غزة مختلفة عن الحرب في أي مكان ثاني، وبالتالي تداعيات هذه الحرب تكون أيضا مختلفة عن ما يجري في الحروب في المنطقة.
La striscia di Gaza rispetto ad altri territori differenti. Si tratta di un territorio piccolo, sotto assedio dai controllati, e per questo ritengo che la guerra su Gaza sia diversa rispetto a quella su altri territori e richiede delle osservazioni e delle analisi differenti.
وبالتأكيد عندما نتحدث عن الحرب في قطاع غزة كل الناس يعني يتابعون ربما ويركزون على الشهداء والجرحى وعلى حالة الدمار وقلة الطعام والشراب، وهذا هو الطبيعي جدا. لكن بالنسبة لي هناك جوانب ربما تكون أصعب وأشد على الإنسان، وهي ذات العلاقة بالشأن النفسي والآثار النفسية.
Sicuramente quando parliamo della guerra nella striscia di Gaza, tutte le persone pensano ai martiri, alle persone martiri, alla mancanza di acqua, alla carestia che è stata provocata. Ma dal mio punto di vista ci sono cose molto più difficili e che appunto hanno a che fare con la salute mentale e sulla salute mentale questa guerra, questo genocidio sta facendo.
لكن عندما نتحدث عن الصدمات النفسية في قطاع غزة فبالتأكيد نتحدث عن صدمات مركبة ليست صدمات قوية، لأن الأمر هو أصلا مركب، وبالتالي ينتج هذا النوع من الصدمات، وهذا ناتج عن عدة اعتبارات. أولا لأن هذه الصدمات هي صدمات طويلة الأمد ومتوارثة منذ عام 48 والنكبات والنكسات وخمسة حروب قبل هذه الحرب وتوجت بهذه الحرب بالتأكيد، وبطبيعة الحال للنتائج الكارثية لهذه الحرب تحديدا في قطاع غزة خلال عامين.
Per questo quando parliamo dei traumi a Gaza non parliamo di traumi semplici, ma di traumi stratificati, proprio perché si tratta di un contesto stratificato. È una questione lunga, è una storia lunga che racconta, che prevede numerose nasse, 5 guerre precedenti a questa e gli effetti catastrofici di questa guerra e di 2 anni di genocidio.
إذا تحدثنا فقط عن حالة والتشريد وفقدان المنزل، فقدان المأوى، فقدان الطعام، فقدان الشراب، عدم إيجاد مكان لقضاء الحاجة، فقدان الخصوصية لا سيما للنساء في المجتمع المحافظ كمجتمع قطاع غزة، هذا الأمر بالتأكيد سيترك آثار عميقة جدا في نفس أجيال ستستمر لسنوات، هذا أكيد. ولذلك نتحدث عن هذا الجانب الذي لا ترصده الكاميرات ولا توثقه كل عدسات الكاميرات، وحتى الناس لا يرونه، لأنه باختصار شديد هذه المعاناة مستمرة على مدار اللحظة، على مدار الساعة، على مدار الأيام، وعلى مدار سنتين من حرب الإبادة.
Possiamo parlare dello sfogamento, dell'omicidio, della perdita, della mancanza di cibo, di acqua, della mancanza di cure, ma c'è anche per esempio la mancanza di privacy per le persone, non trovare un luogo dove appunto poter essere da sole, o in un contesto appunto protetto. Penso alla privacy delle donne, per esempio, in un contesto come quello di Gaza, che è decisamente conservatore da questo punto di vista, che ha degli standard di un certo tipo anche rispetto alla commissione tra i generi. E questo avrà degli effetti molto profondi e prolungati che si trasmetteranno tra le generazioni, intergenerazionalmente. Questo le telecamere non lo vedono, le persone non lo vedono. Queste cose continuano ogni attimo, ora, giorno, e da 2 anni, da quando questa guerra di annientamento e di annichilimento è iniziata.
مختص شريك الصحفيين للمرة يجدون أنفسهم يدفعون ثمن هذه الحرب أضعاف مضاعفة حتى ربما عن المواطن، لأنه يدفع ثمن الحرب كمختص أو كصحفي، ويدفع ثمن الحرب كمدير، ويدفع ثمن الحرب كإنسان، ويدفع ثمن الحرب مثله مثل كل الناس، فقد المأوى والمنزل وفقد حتى كل مقومات الحياة هو وأهله، وبالتالي أصبح يعيش حالة الخوف على نفسه وعلى زملائه وعلى الرسالة التي يعمل بها، وأيضا على الأهل، الزوجة والأولاد والأقارب والإخوة والأخوات والأسرة والقريب والصديق، وعلى الشعب بشكل عام.
E quando entriamo più nel dettaglio, in quello che riguarda i giornalisti e le giornaliste, per la prima volta vediamo che i giornalisti e le giornaliste a Gaza stanno pagando un prezzo altissimo, molto più alto di quello delle persone civili. Pagano il prezzo come giornalisti, come direttori, come esseri umani, e poi come tutti gli altri, senza casa, senza tutte le cose desiderabili per la vita. Il giornalista Gaza oggi prova paura per sé, per i suoi colleghi, per la sua testimonianza, per la moglie, per i parenti, per i fratelli, per gli amici, per tutto il popolo palestinese in generale.
عندما تبدأ وتنطلق نحن كصحفيين بدل أن نحتضن أبناءنا وأسرتنا نحاول توفير لها الأمن والأمان ما تيسر، الالتزامات والاحتياجات اليومية والنفسية، حتى نقوم بنقلهم وتوفير لهم. نحن كصحفيين لا نتركهم في ذلك الوقت وننطلق إلى العمل. الصغار من أبنائنا انظر إلى عيونهم وهم يتساءلون لماذا الأب يتركنا في هذا الوقت الصعب الذي نحن أحوج ما نكون إليه في هذه اللحظة، ويذهب وكأنه يخرج من مسؤولياته ومن عمله، من وظيفته كأب، من رمزيته كأب، من دوره كأب. هذا شيء قاتل بالنسبة لهم وبالنسبة لنا. ليس سهلا علينا أن نتحمل هذه النظرات التي تشبه وكأن الأطفال يتهموننا لماذا تهربون وتتركون. هذا أمر قاتل بالنسبة لنا، لكن على أي حال لا يمكننا أن نجلس معهم ونترك العمل والوظيفة التي آمنا بها.
In questo scenario parlo di una questione molto importante. Quando inizia una guerra, noi giornalisti, anziché proteggere i nostri familiari, i nostri figli, le nostre figlie e procurare loro l'essenziale, curarci dei loro bisogni materiali e, morali e psicologici e emotivi, noi li lasciamo proprio in quel momento e andiamo al lavoro. Quando guardiamo gli occhi dei nostri figli, li vediamo domandarsi: perché mio padre mi lascia in un momento come questo, dove ho più bisogno di lui? Perché lascia il ruolo essenziale di padre in un momento come questo? E come se i bambini ci accusassero: perché ci lasciate? E questo ci uccide. Ma sappiamo allo stesso tempo che noi non possiamo lasciare il lavoro e la testimonianza fondamentale in cui crediamo.
ما بالنسبة لنا ولأبنائنا تستمر إذا طلبوا خيرا كمأوى لا نستطيع في بعض الأحيان إذا طلبوا الطعام إذا طلبوا الشراب إذا طلبوا أن يراهم خلال العمل لا نستطيع أن نذهب إليهم ونراهم مع الأسف لأننا الأولوية القصوى للعمل والحساب وللملايين من الناس الذين ينتظرون منا هذه المعلومات حتى يبقوا على صلة وهذا بالتأكيد له ثمن كبير من نفسياتنا ومعنوياتنا أيضا ومعنويات سائر الكتائب لكن مع الأسف في هذه الحرب انتهى الأمر إلى نهاية مأساوية أكثر أسرة استهدفت وقتلت الزوجة التي كانت تقوم بدوري كأب بدورها كطبيب وكمرشد وكطبيب نفسي وكراعي وكموفر لكل الاشياء هي الاخرى دفعت حياتها ثمنا والولد والبنت والحفيد وابناء الاخوه وابناء الاخوات والاقارب ومن تبقى جريح وعليك ان تتصرف انت كصحفي امام هذه المأساة.
Purtroppo questo trauma per noi e per i nostri figli continua. Per esempio, se ci chiedono una tenda, dell'acqua, del cibo, noi non possiamo andare, vederci, siamo al lavoro, noi non possiamo andare, perché in primo luogo ci fa testimoniare quello che sta accadendo. Il nostro lavoro è essenziale. Purtroppo in questa guerra sono state perse, e qui cerco di renderlo il più possibile perché lui parla, dice è stata persa la moglie, quindi qualcosa che persone che sono collettivo. Purtroppo in questa guerra sono state perse le mogli che svolgevano il ruolo di cura delle madri, psicologhe, di supporto essenziale in questa condizione. Ma si sono persi anche i figli, le figlie, i nipoti. Tutto ciò che rimane è ferito e tutti coloro che rimangono sono feriti e tu giornalista devi occuparti di fronte a questa tragedia.
في ملزم الإجابة على ذات السؤال انه من تبقى من الاسره كجرحى هل ستجلس وتترك الوظيفه والرساله التي امنت بها وتعطيها كل جهدك وكل امكانياتك ام انك سوف تواصل وتتركهم من جديد ايضا مره اخرى انت في خيار اصلا في اللحظه الحرب الاولى لكن عليك ان انا بالنسبه لي قررت ان اواصل وصارحت ابنائي بذلك وقلت لهم سوف اواصل هل ستاتون معي ام انكم ستبقون في المستشفى وكانت ربما واحده من العلاج النفسي لكن له ثمن كبير هذا العلاج هو ما سمعته من اطفال وبنات الصغيرات المصابات عندما قالوا لي نحن معك اما ان نقتل معك او نحيا وهذا كان علاج، لكنه علاج مختلف بالنسبة لي على الصعيد النفسي وبالنسبة لهم أيضا.
E allora ti trovi nuovamente come giornalista a interrogarti su questa domanda. Di fronte a coloro che rimangono feriti, ti siederai e starai loro vicino e abbandonerai le tue testimonianze come giornalista, oppure continuerai la tua testimonianza per loro. Devi decidere. E io ho deciso di continuare. E ho confessato questo ai miei figli e ho chiesto loro se sarebbero venuti con me oppure se avrebbero preferito rimanere in ospedale. Per me questo è stato terapeutico. Quando ho sentito dai miei figli, noi siamo con te, o saremo uccisi con te oppure sopravviveremo con te. Questo per me e per loro è stato terapeutico. Sebbene estremamente difficile.
بالتأكيد لن أساس كثير من الأمر فيما يتعلق بالنسبة لنا كصحفيين وبالنسبة للناس في قطاع غزة. كثير من النظريات التي وثقتها كتب ونظريات عن النفس وعن الاجتماع وما شابه، ولكن أقول بأن ما تركته هذا الحرب هو كبير وعميق جدا ويحتاج إلى فترة كثيرة. أولا للمرور منه دون صدمات مركبة، ثانيا للتعافي من هذه الأزمة. بالنسبة لي أنا من أنصار نظرية العمل على المنع النفسي والتحسين النفسي قبل حدوث الأزمات. ولعل قطاع غزة هو بيئة من البيئات الخاصة، لأنها بيئة أزمة، حياة أزمة، يعيش الناس أجيال متعاقبة يتوارثون الأزمة. ولذلك أعتقد أن أفضل حل وأفضل وصفة علاجية هو التحسين النفسي. وأظن أن حب البلد وحب الوظيفة وحب الرسالة والإيمان بها والإيمان بأهميتها والإيمان بالتضحية من أجلها هو أمر شديد الأهمية في كيفية التعاطي واحتواء هذه الأزمات والتعافي منها والخروج بأقل الأضرار. طبعا يعني أنا أستريحكم عذرا لأنني لن أستطيع أن أسترسل أكثر من ذلك، لكن هذه هي وجهة نظري في عجالة، وربما تجمعنا أيام لقاءات أخرى نسهر فيها بشكل أكثر، نتعمق بشكل أكبر، وأكيد الخير فيكم يمكن أن تواصلوا أكثر من ذلك. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله كل خير.
شكرا كثير أستاذ على الحضور. يعني اللي حكيته كثير مؤثر وراح نضل نفكر فيه حتى يعني نفهمه أحسن، لأن كلامه كان كثير عميق وفيه كثير.
بارك الله فيكم، بارك الله فيكم، والسلام إلى الجميع.
شكرا، مع السلامة. شكرا.
بارك الله فيكم.
مع السلامة. Allora, concludo l'intervento, non mi prolungherò perché ciò che riguarda noi giornalisti è molto più ampio. Ci sono numerose teorie, numerose persone che si occupano di questo nel campo della salute, ma chiudo dicendo che ciò che ha vissuto questo è enorme e profondo e richiede un periodo molto lungo, senza traumi sovrapposti inizialmente, per poter poi curare tutto questo che è avvenuto. Ma io sono per una psicologia che rinforzi il suo che a mio avviso è la migliore terapia, quella che permette di prevenire e di resistere a qualsiasi tipo. E dall'altro lato sottolineo l'importanza che ha avuto per me, che ha per molti a Gaza, l'amore per il proprio territorio, per il proprio ruolo di testimoni, per la propria testimonianza, per il proprio lavoro e inoltre l'importanza, la fede che a il discorso è stato veramente profondo e quindi cerco di non banalizzare, di renderlo in maniera più complessa possibile. E credo che ho fede nel fatto che il sacrificio in questo contesto è fondamentale per dare il massimo, per poter appunto rendere fede alla propria testimonianza e uscirne al meglio possibile. Mi auguro che ci siano altri incontri per andare più a fondo e vi ringrazio per l'ascolto. C'è qualcuno di voi che non comprende bene l'inglese? Ok, allora, dopo questa testimonianza veramente incredibile, mi sento di aggiungere molto e ritengo appunto per chi appunto è arabo di origine attuale riguardato Al Jazeera, Wild Darfur è veramente stato questi anni di genocidio una famiglia e io credo che abbiamo da lui. Lascio la parola al dottor Yasser Abujamid, che ho già presentato, che ci parlerà appunto della questione della salute mentale dal punto di vista del professionista che ha lavorato a Gaza per lungo tempo.
Slides.
انت بتحكي لنا تعمل صعب.
Okay, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, I'll be speaking in English. My Italian is really terrible, and I promise to work on improving it. Let me begin by thanking my friends, colleagues, Uba and Alia, for arranging this very important session or meeting, and for while he was here with us despite his other engagements. And of course, I would like to begin by thanking you all for being here today with us. This is very important. I see we are in a university venue, but it's really lovely to see people from all ages, the young students and the other young people like me. The question of Gaza and mental health in Gaza is really something that is now getting a lot of attention. Because a lot of people are asking, how can we help? And others are asking, what is the psychological impact? Or what's the mental health impact of the living through these 2 years? How does it look like? And we all hear the numbers, we all hear the figures. The very optimistic ones speak about now 65,000 people killed, more than 170,000 people injured. The Lancet say that the real number is a lot more than that. It's more than 380,000 people will be directly or indirectly killed. example, a couple of days ago, I heard that on the waiting list of people waiting to exit Gaza for health reasons, the WHO list of 15,000 injured, now it's 14,000. Because 1,000 died. It's not that because they left, but because they didn't find treatment. And there are many other people, like the elderly, like people with chronic illnesses, people with cancer, people with very chronic but less serious conditions, like people who are in renal dialysis or hemodialysis. They didn't find the equipment, the machinery, just 2 or 3 months of the war or genocide. And then people say, really, how people survive there. I mean, we can say that with each family, because when we speak about the directly impacted, the injured or the killed, speak about almost 150,000 people. That's more than 10% of the population. So it's almost every family or every house who got injured or killed, or at least died indirectly because of chronic illness that he or she didn't. And I hear all the time questions more about the children, how the children survive, what are the children doing. And it's really interesting that people like to hear more about stories of children. And adults like us, for example, they became secondary, but this is quite understandable. Everyone cares and say children comes first. Here I bring you 2 drawings of 2 nice young children. Both of them are girls. If you go with the first one, it's a drawing by a very young child. She is, I think, just 10. This drawing was made in the beginning of 2024. It's already 1 year and a half, even more. And in this, she wanted to show my colleague, the therapist, how this one, yes, how her life was before and after. Because children try to show what really happened to them, and they would like to express themselves, use drawing in order to make them express themselves. You see that she managed to depict many things. This girl was originally from Gaza City, but she had to leave Gaza at the beginning of the war. She had to stay in Rafah. And our colleagues, my colleague, found her or talked to her in one of the shelters that she was taking shelter. You will see how children were playing. You will see that the house was nice. See that the school was there. You will see that the trees were lovely. You will see some flowers there. And you will see the girl herself sitting on the low corner, left corner. And she writes her idea, my life before and after the war. That's what she writes. But look what happened later. The house is on fire because it was bombed. The school, that was a place for education, became a place that you are living in. You see the threads that have the ropes, the ropes that has the clothes on. And children who were carrying bags to enter schools became now carrying something else, carrying just water or some material that they can help their parents with. If you look at the children who were playing, they were injured and they are still bleeding. If you look at the boy who was on the tricycle, he is now in a wheelchair. And then something appeared in the sea, tent appeared in the sea. Because even shelters, we think about shelters. Areas or cities, countries, when people talk about shelters, they usually reach a safe place, which means that this is a place that is not really a shelter, so it's not going to be wrong, but that's not the situation. Until a few days ago, we heard that even people in tents, including one journalist were killed. Imagine someone who would fire a missile at a tent where a family is staying there. And I don't know what's the reason, but it was clearly a journalist. And then she is herself sitting in the corner, and rather than having the three balloons in her hands, she is sitting with tears in her eyes, saying, "My life before and after." What does it mean in the school? How life was in the shelter? I live in East Kanyunis, a place that is about 1.5 kilometers from the separation wall or separation fence. There are no borders between the states. Anyone who says that there are borders, they are mistaken. They are mistaken. We have a separation fence or wall. That's it. And we have to leave the place immediately, as we all do. And then we had to spend 1 month in one of those shelters in one of the schools. And to make you imagine what does that mean, schools have small, well, not that small, but moderate rooms, size of rooms, 20 to 25 square meters, like 5 by 5. These rooms became shelters for women and girls. And on average, there were 45 to 50 women and girls staying in the same room. Imagine how would they sleep even in that room, whether they had even mattresses for them. And the answer simply is no. Imagine when 1.5 million people being displaced in 2 or 3 months, because this is the figure already in November and December 2023. Already 1.1 million people were displaced for a period. And you find 1 million mattresses in 1 or 2 weeks, of course. And then the other difficulty is that, okay, so they are staying in that place. Is it safe? No. You will still hear the bombardment. Some of those shelters, schools were even bombed. And let me add to you that what life really looked in the school. First, you have an average 12 to 16 toilets. That school is used to host children during the schooling time. On average, because our schools are very crowded, 700 to 800 children. Imagine, on average, they became hosts for 2,000 people. And men, because when men were sleeping outside or they were sleeping in the corridors, because there's not enough space for families to stay together. These 2,000 women and girls were sharing these 12 to 16 toilets. And imagine because the Honor truck will come, but there was no electricity power supply, nothing was moving smoothly, even the way that water comes there. The truck will come at a certain moment in the time of the day, usually 9 to 10 a.m. They will just the water to the reservoirs, to the tanks that are over the building, and that water will be gone after 4 or 5 hours. So think how people without water will survive between 2 p.m. and the second day, 10 a.m. And everyone will need, of course, to go to the toilet. How many times women had the chance, or even men, by the way, to have shower during those days? Almost none. Almost. My son today was he's 20 years old. We left Gaza for 6 months from the beginning of the war. We were talking a little bit about what was happening. And one friend asked him, what was it like? Like he said, it was very strange that when we left the school, we decided to go to live in a tent, And it was our biggest achievement because we had our own toilet there. That was the best achievement. And I don't want to tell you what that toilet looks like. I have a picture of it, by the way, but it's not for today. And there we It's already for 2 years for many of the people. And on top of that, many of the people were displaced multiple times. The area that we were sheltering in, again, in May, just about 2 or 3 weeks before we leave Gaza, 2 weeks before we leave Gaza, became itself a red area. Now, nothing is there. The whole city is just sand and dust. So people were displaced multiple times. So when we talk about a child and we ask her, what do you feel? And she gives you this drawing, she's really talking about what she was witnessing. But then, older girl, she went deeper to really give us another overview or feeling of how she really inside deeply feels. She's not picturing the situation, but she is telling you how she feels. And let's take a look at this, the other drawing. And again, this is drawing by a little bit older girl. She is 14, and she is a daughter of a firefighter from there in back. They were not displaced. The middle area had the minimum caps. I think only 20 or 30% of the houses were destroyed. And her father was killed while being on duty. Again, he is a firefighter. And she was sick during one of the visits. That's how she drew herself. She just thought of a way to say how the war impacted. Of course, she's showing something like her clothes. She's showing it in the how the clothes appear. The colors change from very lovely colors, cheerful colors, to gray colors. But look at her hair, you know. Who would think that if a girl or if a boy, if a child is going to draw something, he or she is 14, 15, will draw a different color of her or his hair. What happened to the color? And there is a very, now it's getting more and more famous story of a child who was, I think, 8 or 9. Her hair became really white. I mean, when you look at her hair, it's already white. You can see that the remaining of this is just 8 or 19. So this is how children look at things. Now we, the parents, were seeing how things were happening, not only to us, but also to our children. Imagine that you see your children being terrified every day and night. That they wake up in the middle of the night terrorized, screaming, or putting their hands in their ears because they want to show, or they wake up frightened, or because they had a nightmare. When you have, in my case, I have 3 daughters, and I question myself all the time, where can I find a toilet for my daughters? Or is the place safe? Is it really safe? Is this place going to be bombed or not? No one really knows. No one ever knew, and still no one really knows. And then you see the implications of living in a shelter like in this. Whatever infections you can think, you can find. Beginning from gastrointestinal infections, upper respiratory tract infections, but even more serious infections, skin diseases, scabies, hepatitis A, or jaundice. They were already there. It was declared a pandemic of jaundice in March 2024. And on top of that, poliomyelitis. One case was confirmed. In a place like Gaza, when it had all the time followed the best vaccination regulation that you could ever, our vaccination system is completely in line with the WHO recommendations. Of course, things stopped. And that's the next one. And then you see your children, other than growing, they lose weight. It's a times they become pale. And sometimes they are shady, shivering and shady. You see the fear in their eyes and this. And then imagine that 50% of the population were already under poverty line. And so poverty line. Which means there were no resources. They didn't have money. That was a big question. How can we survive? So people had really to endure and go through that. That's why when we speak about adults, when we talk about in children, we speak about nightmares, we speak about tired, sleep problems, we speak about being afraid, we speak about being irritable, they can't stand still in their place. We speak about bedwetting also as a sign of trauma, but in adults it's a different story. It's the loss of hope. It's being directly traumatized because maybe you were pulled from underground, maybe you have seen someone being killed before your eyes, or just going through this 2 years of genocide. And then questions come, what can we do? And for Palestinians, what can we do? I mean, people are being killed. What can we do? Literally, there is nothing that you can do. Can you change something? No. Can you stop it? No. I managed to change something. The best thing that I could manage is to move from Athens to Athens. And we could have our own toilet. That's what I could achieve. What more? Even buying food for my children was a thing. We celebrated twice. We are speaking a lot about celebration. One was yogurt. Yogurt was not there for about 3 or 4 months. Still in March 2024 appeared. Oh, we have yogurt. Pigs were broken. Imagine, around that time there was a sort of more influx of support. Eggs, fantastic. We buy eggs. My then 2.5-year-old daughter never liked eggs. She started eating the eggs then. We celebrated. Yeah, we managed to get some yogurt and some eggs. And from one time, we managed to buy chips and for the big and for the young. Yeah, very expensive. We did it for once. They disappeared in the market. They were there for a couple of weeks and then disappeared. We speak about 2 million people receiving few trucks per day. What can they do? Is it enough? No. And then we come to mental health professionals and we say, can we help? And people ask, well, before we think about helping, let's we see symptoms. We see people frightened. We see people being underattended. We see people with no hope. We see people with no, with a sense of helplessness. We see people who are angry while the world is watching. That's what we see. Are they depressed? Of course. Are they traumatized? Of course. Are they crazy? Can I ask that question? Did they become insane? Can we ask this question? Is it right to say that 70% of the population in Gaza are now with disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, or major depressive disorder? If the whole world turned their back on me and I am so distressed, so disappointed, does that make me crazy? And what kind of psychological support can I'm a psychiatrist. What could I do to a person who lost his father or mother, husband or wife? Everything will be fine, but the bombardment is still happening. he used, and this is not the first time, as I was saying, but I'll tell you one. In 2014, for example, was a long attack, 51 days. Sometimes we refer to it. The only thing and the main thing that people did after the ceasefire happened is to open the mourning houses. Because we had time even to mourn the death of the people. There was no time. People were running from place to place. People who got killed, they were buried in their places. That's it. But to open a mourning house, can you accept people's condolences? It was not like that. It's not like that 2 years now. So the first was mourning houses, receiving condolences from people. You cannot, unfortunately, under such circumstances, even dignify the dead people. There is no chance. So what we try to do is at least to make people understand what's going on, at least make them understand that some of their changes in their behavior is because of the trauma. For example, you wake up in the morning in one of the schools, you are a mother, the mother, and you have two daughters, one of them is 14 and one of them is 8. You wake up in the morning with the 8-year-old in the class that has 50 women girls with her bed wet. She is 8. How could that happen? And perhaps that's the mattress that the three of them are sharing. And it's happening in front of other 50 women. How would that girl feel, first of all? What would be the response of the mother? How can she wash those clothes in the first place? Does she have another set of clothes for that? And what would be the response? Probably. She would yell at the girl, probably. Scream at the girl, probably. She will go to tell the husband, probably. What if the husband is willing to see the father? They understand it. So for a mental health professional, you go and tell people this is a sign of trauma. You understand that. And you cannot make things better when you scream at your daughter or your son. This is common in daughters and sons, both. You cannot really do that. You need to do something else. We speak about increase in violence, family violence. Children do not anymore listen to their parents. That's some of the problems that we face. But you asked your son once to bring this bottle from the market here in Italy. He will be happy. He will do it for you today. Tomorrow he will do it for you. 3 or 4 days later, he will tell you, "Come on, I can't do it, but just give me something that I can buy my own." You know, you will manage at the end of the day. But if you ask your child, son or daughter, to carry 20 liters of water to bring it to you every second or third day, that is something impossible that a child will be enjoying. And that's why we say that our children have grown and became adults, although they are 7 or 8, because they are doing the work of adults. You need to educate the population. You need to do what we can try. It's just to prevent that your psychological well-being will be worse, of course. You are trying to help people survive, nothing more than that. That's the only thing that we can do. We do it through psychological first aid, through public meetings, we have meetings for everyone, we educate the population, we see people in our community centers and the clinics. But the top idea is to help people understand and continue living or doing or surviving. We are not talking about healing at all. We are not talking about recovery at all. And we are not talking about building resilience. Build resilience when the war is going, and resilience. So there are many activities that can be done, but they are not as effective as they should be. And they are not solving the problems. Because there is something that is ongoing. The next one, please. Yeah, it's the same. Oh. And if you go to the literature, if you go to the world opinion about working in disasters, you see this. Yeah. This is the pyramid of mental health interventions after disasters or atrocities. It's produced by the ICE, which is the agency that should coordinate all work in areas of emergencies. You see, the pyramid has a very wide base. It's like any pyramid. I've seen that 3 pyramids 2 days ago in Egypt. So at the top of the pyramid, you see the specialized mental health interventions, which is the psychiatrist does, which is what I do, which is what Alia is doing, which is graduated today, congratulations again. But that's the tip of the pyramid. And that's for people with disorders. But the others, everyone needs intervention. The intervention that everyone needs. You look at it, the first one, you speak about social considerations. You speak about the very basic things. You speak about confidentiality. You speak about privacy. You speak about protection. You speak about being not afraid of a bomb that might fall at any moment. These are the very basic and simple things. These are the basic requirements for all people. So when we speak about children, how can we help children? We say, yes, it's very important to work with the traumatized. Save the Children issued a report in October 2022 saying that 8 out of 10 children, 80% of the children, have psychological distress. 1 year before October 2023, it was already there because of the living circumstances. So without addressing the living circumstances, things are going to continue. And that's why, if you speak about the rights of children, the very basic thing, shelter. Next slide, please. The very basic thing is education. The very basic thing is health. I mean, that's those the very basic things. Which among those 3 basic things are available now in Gaza, given that the ceasefire already happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? I don't remember. You know why I don't remember? Because 2 days ago, we had one night of bombardment. 104 people were killed in that one night. And they, okay, stopped. And why it began, why it stopped, what is the dynamic, what's the mechanism? So you need to continue to be terrified every day, right? You need to make sure that your life is not going to be secure or safe. How can people survive? I talk to my friends, to my relatives, guys, they tell me, well, winter is coming. This is a very famous fall. You haven't seen that big serial with winter is coming. I advise you not to watch it. Well, winter is, there are no tents. There are no clothes. 1.9 million people, 90% of the population, are now in the streets. They need tents. Tents good enough to survive another winter? No. Do they have clothes to survive another winter? No. These very basic things are not there. And when you speak about trucks that are getting into Gaza, 400, 500 trucks per day for 2 million people. Remember when I said we had Christmas? That's what's going to happen. You know, it's like Christmas. This Christmas you have eggs. The next Christmas you have chicken. The next Christmas you have fish. Something like that. So every second or third week, maybe you are lucky to find something, because the distribution of food for 2 million people and have 400 trucks per day is nonsense. And the whole world knows this. So to work, we need to work on these things. And at the same time, you will face the challenges and you will need your presence as a mental health professional. Because you will find children who are going to refuse eating. you will find men and women with increased tension, with more stressors, because you are now under the feeling of fear. You haven't had the time to think about what you have lost. Now you are running for your life. Imagine someone who is in a zoo and suddenly he saw a lion next to him. What he will do or she will do? Just run. If you ask him, how are you? He will respond. He's running. What's your mental health? He will not respond. He will be running. But then the second and third day, he will tell you what she was doing. And imagine for someone in Gaza today starts to understand that first, borders are not as open as they should be. Only 4 to 500 trucks per day. Yes. I lost my house. I still lost some of my friends. I lost my family members. And I still need to struggle to find water. And still there is no electricity and power supply at all. And still there are no clothes at all. And now I should continue to take care of my wife or husband and my sons or daughters and my parents. And that happened. That's what people are asked now to do. So the psychological struggle will continue, and it continues. And I have written a sentence that I say. I know why personally is a fine man. I have now sorry to disagree with him when he says about the love of your country. Well, don't tell me love your country and things will be better. Sorry. Don't tell me become more resilient and life will become better. Sorry, it's not like that. It's not like that. Because it doesn't mean if I lift my country, for example, that I don't love it. Or it doesn't mean that if I feel so much pain that I don't love my country. And it doesn't mean if I go to a mental health therapist that I don't love my country. And it doesn't mean that we need to build resilience when people are still can't find food and can't find water. It doesn't work like that. Because if you do it like that, then we will be enforcing or causing more harm to the people, more psychological harm. Because in that situation, you will say, yes, you're still not happy. Oh, you don't love your country. Oh, you don't have enough resilience. So it become our mistake, our personal mistake. For example, Alia, she's from Iraq, originally, Italian, of course, a brilliant young woman. And now I tell her, do you feel pain because of what you've seen in Gaza? Do you feel pain? No, it's your mistake. You should be more resilient. You shouldn't feel the pain. I mean, some of the engagement that come in the field of mental health are really ridiculous when you talk to survivors. That's what, and I know I have spoken really a lot. Oh, more than a lot. I will end up, I will not repeat what Eva said about funnel, but there will be no chance at any moment to have good mental health without having your basic human rights. And under human rights lies many things. Human Rights Conventions was made in 1948. Since then, there were many human rights laws and regulations. Rights for children, rights for women, social rights, economic rights, health, right to health, right to education, blah, 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 blah. They are valid for all the world, but not for Palestinian people. Until when this is going to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes. I have some things to say, then I let the public speak for the questions. The first one is that genocide is not a humanitarian question. It became a humanitarian question. We see it, but it's a political one, and without political support from our countries and North American countries, this would not be happening. And I think this is important to say. Another suggestion that came to me comes from a Iraqi song, and is about line that says that I have skeletons in my hairs, not with hairs. So it's in Arabic, it's a way to express pain also. So I found it very interesting, the picture that you showed. And then I think that maybe in front of this genocide, what we have to do now is to start to decolonize our societies, because if this is happening now with our country's complicity, it is because we have a big problem with coloniality. So this is a suggestion. And for who doesn't know, I'm part of the colonial medicine, so this is very important for me. And maybe Ruba, I don't know if you want to say something.
Well, I have a couple of, I don't want to take too much time. I don't know if people have questions already. It's been very good listening to, well, it's actually an honor and a blessing to be able to listen to what but if you wanted to say something, of course, or you're gathering your thoughts, I take this opportunity to say that I really appreciated Yasmin's rendition. It couldn't be more compelling to hear really the ordinary day-to-day struggles which make up for the whole picture of devastation, really. And it is really the adding up of what seem to be like small innocent that really, at the end of the day, in addition to the death and devastation and destruction, the ability to, for a child to, for a daughter to have access to a toilet is the difference it makes really between surviving and not surviving. And I think you really gave us a very compelling rendition of what Gaza is today. But I was very struck because obviously you said as practitioners, as psychiatrists, mental health practitioners, we cannot do anything other than convincing people or helping people to survive, to get by every day. And because obviously until the genocide and before the genocide and along the genocide, settler colonial occupation of Palestine continues, there cannot be healing. And I think I very much appreciate what you said. But I'm wondering, because we've seen after each ceasefire, and we cannot claim this is a ceasefire, as you said, every day 100 people get killed since the so-called ceasefire happened. But what we've seen is a lot of videos of, in fact, the grieving happening, like the grief. One thinks that the surviving is the tough part, surviving, trying not to get killed, trying to get food, get water. But from what you said, it almost feels that the everyday adrenaline that it takes to be alive the trouble starts now, in a way, when people are now seeing, the scale of the devastation, when they go home and see the home is not there anymore, or it is there, but half of it, or it is there, but underneath, you have your relatives still buried there. And it was devastating, to see these images of people completely, at one point, letting go of this emotional pain and distress. And I'm wondering, on a massive scale, how will Gaza, we will be free one day. what will be like the day after as a practitioner who knows, people's mental health and colonial traumas they endure.
Thank you, Robert. In 2014, 2021, all the time, every like few years, we have this situation that Gaza is being under attack. Remember, 2021 was a year when we had COVID. And Italy remembers this very well, unfortunately. That was the second year of COVID. And that time, the war began in April. That was at the second peak of COVID in Gaza. People were running. They were leaving their places, going to a better place. The destruction was a lot lower than now. We don't speak about tens of thousands, maybe just hundreds of houses that were destroyed, but people were sheltering each other. So imagine it's at the best situation when you have everyone hanging tough, but there is no alternative solution. There is no measures that you can have or do or apply in order to avoid COVID. Now, the ceasefire happened, I think it was just for 11 or 12 days. And the Ministry of Education then announced it's too heavy even for the fire alarm. So they said, okay, education is over for this year. The education during COVID was something like this and that. So I was heading to work, and during that day, it was announced that children should go and receive their certificates from the schools. Certificate that shows that they have finished that academic year. And again, it was the night of that day that the ceasefire took place. In the morning, going to my work in Gaza from East Highlands about 20 kilometers, I see all the way children wearing very nice, colorful clothes, waving with their papers that shows that they have finished studying 1 year, that they haven't even attended the school during the whole year. But they were so happy, and they were laughing, and they were just jumping over the rubble of the destroyed pieces. For me, as a psychiatrist, then working in the field for just 19 years, that was something that is amazing. What's this? What's going on? And the ironic thing is that most of the children were wearing new clothes because there was the Ramadan feast that should happen, but it didn't happen because it was war, And some of the parents who had money, they were already bought the clothes. So the clothes were given, war was over, clothes are put on, children go to schools, they receive their certificates, wear and fly back home. For me, that was a very big surprise, very positive one. And again, I tell the people all the time that a lot of our encouragement, a lot of our energy comes from our own children. Between January and March, January 18 and March 17, 2025, there was a ceasefire that collapsed, of course. During those 2 months, already parents, already teachers, already children arranged schooling for their children. And this is very strange during the ceasefire, because we want education to happen. And education for us, on average, we have 4 to 5 children per family. It's a full-time job for the father, for the mother, for everyone. So everyone being engaged first of all, and being like exposed to trauma, now thinking, what have you studied? What's the topic for today? Let's try to study. I mean, we are a nation that all the time struggles, and all the time looks for the best, and all the time struggles to survive. And part of the survival is to have a good education for the children. Part of the survival is cleaning rubble. And I am sure if you are following TikTok or whatever you follow the news about Gaza, you will see people cleaning now. Everyone will be showing himself herself cleaning. The partially destroyed house is being cleaned. What we need, Ruba, really, as Palestinians, is our freedom to be able to control our resources, to be able to plan what we want, to be able to lead a normal life like any other man and woman. Nothing more than that. Resources, everyone in the world would like to go to Palestine. It's a very touristic place, it's a very nice place. Needless to speak about the gas that we have now here in front of Nusayrat camp, just ahead of our eyes. And I think that's part of the world that we are in now. We are becoming more precious. Our land is becoming more precious. That's why now, if you look at the news, Gaza Strip is being divided 50% behind the yellow line, 50% of the population is still struggling. 2.2 million now, 2 million people living now in just 180 square kilometers, and they are not even allowed to go behind the blue line. The separation wall between us and Israel is called the green line. So we have now a blue line, sorry, a yellow line, and the green line is now living there for how many years? 70 something. What about the green line? It's going to disappear next week during the second phase or stage of the ceasefire, or is it going to continue for another 70 years? These are some of the questions that we have. So, but there is a very fundamental question to give the people the chance to recover, survive. And our recovery comes from education, from reconstruction, from cleaning our environment, and first cleaning our wants, and then to allow healing processes to start and to continue. We cannot attack these people every 5 or 6 years. There's no allowance recovery to continue. That's again a break of the recovery cycle, causing relapse more than anything else and complicating things for the future, especially the young generation. That's why we see this is going to continue the psychological implication for generations. It's not going to be for another 10 and 20 years. Now, as I heard from my grandfather what happened in the 40s, and from my father what happened in the 60s, now I'm going to tell my grandchildren what happened in 2024. We thought 2014, or maybe 2008. Now we have 2024. And we don't know what happens. So I give very long answers. It's very difficult to perform when I start talking.
Thank you very much. I leave to the public. We have time for one question, maybe two if very little.
It's very hard for me to right now, but I remember like the first years ago, when I started, it was like not really because like I'm a student in psychology, I'm a psychology student, right? So this is like my and the question of like how are the Palestinians doing mentally? Just like it's not like there's no answer because again, like the primary needs are not there, so you can't talk about mental well-being. And there's barely surviving. Actually, this brings a lot of confidence. Like we're just like wanting comments about the field of psychology and mental health in general. That is very privileged to the point that it's very pretentious when it talks about like these when we talk about these issues. It's like actually right now I'm a bit because I remember even like a professor talking about talking about like putting people together and very like talking like flowers, rainbows, and everything is going to be fine. I'm not really like looking or even mentioning what is the impact on the pain. Not only the pain, like the impact of the project going through. And I feel like we also need to also talk, just talk about the trauma in this like in this particular the trauma of like seeing people dying every single day. And not looking away because we shouldn't. But there's also a trauma that is affecting literally every single person on earth, in my opinion. In different ways, also because I think PTSD is just PTSD for Palestine and yes. But yeah, I just wanted to make this intervention because like I extremely mental health field in general, especially here. Not from here.
What's your name?
Sorry?
Your name? Safa. The answer now. So Safa, I think you will make a wonderful psychologist. That's the beginning. And when I say something, I really mean it. And when I say to some student that he will be good, he or she will be really good. Because part of being a psychologist is really to reflect on the realities, I think, in a wider context rather than in a shallow. Psyche, it's inside us. So how can you not be a psychologist when you just keep yourself above the, I mean, but I'll shorten my answer. What we really offer more than anything else is the sense of togetherness. We are here for you, we are here to support you, and to remind everyone that we are going to survive because we have survived. And try to remind everyone that you can find people who can support you around you. To make people understand that how they are being victimized, how they are being attacked, how they are impacted psychologically. So we talk about collective trauma, but in order to survive a collective trauma, you need a collective healing mechanisms. And that collective healing mechanism will need a facilitator to make people understand. Okay? And that's our important role. That's why we say now to everyone that mental health interventions should be an integrated part of any recovery mechanism that should take place. Mental health should be even part of reconstruction or rebuilding the walls, rebuilding the schools, rebuilding the whatever. So mental health is very important in that. And to talk about PTSD, I'll not go into that. I'm sure that Samah will speak a lot about PTSD, and she is here for this week. So I'll not go into those stuff. But thank you for the question.
So thank you very much. I remind you that a Pior Camilla ricordami alle 21 at 9 p.m. In Valve Social Center there will be another speech with Samah, so I am sure that you will enter this and that we will have everyday speeches from also other pathologists until the 7th. So please follow the event. I want to say thank you to everyone, to Dr. Yasser, to you that listen to us, to Gonzalez, and to our support, Simone Costini and Matteo San Giorgi, that are part also of the colonial medicine, Camilla Ponti and Francesca Esposito that are here and they helped us all those days. So thank you very much. there is mine.